being. Uh, my name is Chris Bursler, and I will be your moderator for this session. Just as a reminder, if your camera is on, we can see you, and if your microphone is on, we can hear you. Please mute yourself, and please use the chat box or raise hand function for any questions that you may have during the session. The presenters will respond to questions at the end of the session. As a reminder, the session is being recorded and will be made available to SLN members in the archives afterwards. I will be placing a link in the chat box right now to the conference handouts. And now I will turn things over to our presenters. As soon as I find them in here and make them, excuse me, just one moment. Jessica, Mark, are you there?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight on this Friday evening, and wanting to learn more about mindfulness for persons with disability and their siblings. I'm Dr. Mark Dixon, and my co-presenters Jessica and John will be speaking to you as well. What we'd like to do is give you a general overview of what mindfulness is, maybe what it's not, and then leave you with some tools that you can use to incorporate mindfulness into your life and into your siblings' lives as well. Next slide. So mindfulness has become very popular. I mean, we could drive past any Starbucks or yoga studio throughout the country and probably find mindfulness classes and go on to the App Store and find mindfulness apps. And while those things have become very popular, they often don't work. And the reason why is because getting to a mindful state requires an active process and activity on your part, rather than just simply consuming a class or consuming, playing an app or some sound effects in the background while you're trying to relax. Tonight, what we're going to do is talk to you a little bit about how we can actually get to that mindful state and the effort that we have to go through to get to it, and the benefits that can be yielded from taking that time and energy to try to become mindful. We're also going to practice mindfulness tonight and give you guys, I think, hopefully a snapshot of the power that this tool can have, and then leave you, as I said before, with just a few tips on how to take just tiny moments of your day and maybe notice things just a little bit differently and catch yourself enjoying moments that you might have missed when you're not mindful, and leave you with some things that I think can make a benefit on you tonight, tomorrow, and hopefully for the rest of your lives. Next slide. So why don't we just start with a mindful moment? Jessie?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Jessie. It's wonderful to be here with you all on a Friday evening. And hopefully it's a nice wind down after a long week. I know the summer heat's been in, it's been busy, busy, busy. I know kids are getting out of school, work schedules are changing. So I thought it might be nice to kind of, incorporate a lot of mindfulness into our presentation this evening. So like Dr. Dixon said, we're going to go ahead and start with a mindful moment. And this might be the easiest instruction you've heard all day, or the easiest task you've maybe been asked to do all day. But what I'd like everybody to do is, for the next 60 seconds, don't do anything. All I want everybody to do for this next minute is just be as mindful as you can during this time. So we'll go ahead and start and just do nothing for this time, and we'll check back in in 60 seconds. Okay, so I think that was about 60 seconds. I didn't time it exactly. Next slide, please. So how did everybody do during that time? It was 60 seconds. And you can raise your hand. I have the videos up here, so I'll be able to see you if you have your camera on. Who felt like that was the longest 60 seconds of your life, or the day at least? Yeah, I see some hands raised. You're like, man, I'm just trying to learn how to be mindful, and this girl's asking me to just do nothing. Like, that's wild. Yeah. So it was just a minute. It was 60 seconds. All I said was just don't do anything. Just be mindful. Does anybody typically take a minute to just do nothing ever during their day? See some shakes, some nods, some in-betweens. That's kind of what I do. I do like a sort of. Somebody was ready to fall asleep. That's what I was worried about. I usually do 2 minutes, and I decided to keep it to 1 because I would also probably nod off. Yeah, it is really hard to be intentional about not thinking about things. It's hard to sometimes take that break or to sit still. Our minds are constantly racing. Yeah, you were maybe thinking about all the things that you were missing. Interesting. So when we're thinking about, being mindful, taking a moment, the task at hand is just to sit and do nothing. And, maybe you were able to be mindful. I know some people said it was calming. I was able to sit still and just take a moment. I never do that. Or maybe your mind was full of things. Someone said I was thinking about all the things that I was missing, or, whatever was coming to my mind, right? So it's kind of interesting when we do take that time to just sit and be still and take a moment. It can be really hard. It can be really challenging, right? Our minds are thinking about hundreds of different things, sometimes all at the same moment, right? We might be thinking about our work or what we have to do tomorrow or what we are going to make for dinner. I know I'm sitting here thinking about dinner. That's where my mind went. I'm thinking about my day for tomorrow. There's so much going on that it's hard to really just sit and be present. And that's really where mindfulness comes in. And we'll talk a lot about mindfulness this evening. And maybe, I know a few people said, like, I've had trouble meditating. Mindfulness is hard. It's really hard to sit still. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about this evening is, kind of what mindfulness is, what it's not, and how to make it, helpful and accessible and easy to do, because it's a practice, and we'll talk a lot about that. But I'd first like to start by talking about what mindfulness is. So who here has heard of mindfulness? You can kind of raise your hand. All right, lots of people. Yeah, like Dr. Dixon said, it's on, Time magazine, it's on, all the celebrities are doing it. It's the big hot thing. Does anybody here practice mindfulness pretty regularly in their day-to-day life? Oh man, the hands went away. Okay, there's a few still up. Okay, so some mindfulness. Cool. Awesome. I love to hear it or see it. Right. So kind of starting with our definition of mindfulness, because there's a lot of different descriptions of mindfulness, a lot of different things out there. A lot of people think about, apps or meditation or whatever, mindful breathing perhaps, but there's so many different pieces to mindfulness that we can really incorporate into our practice. So ultimately, when we're talking about mindfulness, at least for the purposes of what we'll talk about this evening, it's being aware of and observing what is going on around you in the present moment without judgment. So really, it's just noticing the things that are going on in your environment, or, your thoughts or your feelings. So oftentimes when we think of mindfulness, we think about shutting it all out, making it all go away, not thinking about anything. When in fact, mindfulness is actually being aware of everything going on and kind of tuning into those things and noticing when they're there. So when we break down mindfulness, it really has these three different pieces, which I think is really neat to look at. The first piece of it is this mindful awareness. So it's focusing our attention on one thing at a time, including ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings and everything within us and around us. So, kind of seeing what's in front of us, how we're feeling, kind of checking in with ourselves. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I hot? I'm over here melting because it's 90 degrees and humid. Really kind of taking notice of what we're feeling, how we're feeling, what's going on in and around us. The second piece of mindfulness is that non-judgmental observation. So doing or being aware of what's around us and within us without judgment. And I think sometimes that is the most challenging part, right? Sometimes we really do tune into what we're feeling, what we're thinking, where our mind is. And sometimes we get a little tough on ourselves, like, oh man, don't start thinking about that now. That's, she told me to sit here and do nothing. Why am I thinking about work? I don't even have to be back till Monday. Why is that popping up? Right? Sometimes we get really judgy of where our mind goes or what comes about. And it can be really hard to, be non-judgmental about those things. And finally, it also consists of this piece of present moment. So it's being in touch with the present moment rather than being caught up in our thoughts about the past or the future or things that are going on that are not right here, right now. So maybe during that 1 minute, you were thinking about things that happened yesterday or 5 hours ago, or thinking about all the fun things you're going to do over the weekend. Maybe you're thinking about what you're going to do after you're done with this mindfulness talk. You're ready to get to the next thing. It's Friday night, got to party it up. And maybe you kind of started forgetting that you're in a mindfulness talk and, kind of what you were here for. So it's really just being in the here and now, noticing everything within and around us without judging it, and kind of just focusing our attention on those things. But like I said, of course, that sounds really easy and wonderful, but it takes practice. So we're going to keep talking about that. Next slide, please. So when we are mindful, we are intentionally bringing our awareness to the here and now with openness, interest, curiosity, and receptiveness. And kind of unfortunately, this does include the pleasant and the unpleasant stuff. So we're, intaking all of the important information about whether to change our behavior or if we want to. And sometimes, like I said, that includes the stuff that feels good and comfortable and the things that maybe scare us or make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. It also includes becoming fully engaged with what we are doing, right? So who's ever been, washing the dishes or trying to do a chore or a task or spending time with their friends and their family, and they're thinking about like 12 other things that aren't even happening in the present moment, right? You kind of realize like, man, I'm at this birthday party, I'm having a good time, and I can't stop thinking about 5 other things that aren't even happening right now. And sometimes that's a bummer, right? When we're doing things that we really care about or that we really love or really enjoy, we don't always get to enjoy them because our mind is taking us somewhere else. And that's normal. That's part of how our brain is wired. It's kind of wired to be thinking all the time. And we just kind of have to hone it in a little bit and kind of rewire it a little. Being mindful also involves becoming aware of and connected to the truest version of ourselves. So like I said, sometimes when our mind wanders, we do get a little judgy. We do start kind of evaluating the things that we're thinking and feeling. But, when we're able to really recognize like, I wonder why I'm thinking about that. Okay, well, it's just kind of a thought. That's not necessarily who I am. That's not necessarily the truest thought that I've ever had about myself. But it's only when we become mindful that we can really kind of notice those things. And that's a tricky part too, but also a really important part of mindfulness. And it's also the ability to acknowledge that we aren't the sum of these stories that we sometimes tell about ourselves, right? Sometimes we evaluate ourselves or get really stuck to what we think about ourselves or label ourselves. And, sometimes we can kind of notice like, okay, maybe I'm just feeling unproductive or boring or stuck or kind of silly, but that's not necessarily who I am. And sometimes when we have those thoughts and try and shut them out, make them go away, not listen to them because they're not fun to listen to, we're not really paying attention to like, is that a thought or is that something that's really truly factual about me? And again, mindfulness allows us to kind of separate ourselves from those thoughts to kind of move forward. And finally, we can be kind and patient to ourselves in the present moment, which I think is always a wonderful thing. So next slide, please. And of course, all of those things were wonderful and probably really helpful. But there's other benefits to mindfulness. There has been data showing that it improves psychological distress, emotional regulation, job satisfaction, ability to focus, attention. I know I need that a lot. It helps our mood, a positive affect, self-observation, and just kind of overall well-being. Is definitely a benefit of mindfulness. It also is shown to reduce anxiety and depression, burnout, emotional exhaustion, and stress, which all are wonderful things to have less of. Next slide, please. Yeah, John mentioned, being mindful is crucial for siblings. And, sometimes we get really worried about the things that are beyond our immediate control. That's a great example. Sometimes we're focused on these things that are way beyond us, and that can get really big and intimidating sometimes. Yeah. So of course I've gone through all of these really great reasons why we should all be mindful and do mindfulness all the time, and let's get mindful together. But of course, like many of you said, that 1 minute of being mindful and being still was really challenging. So why? Why is it so hard? Maybe it's because when we stop and slow down and tune into our mind, we start having those thoughts about ourselves or maybe about others. We start thinking about our to-do lists, our worries, our stresses. Maybe we start thinking about all of our regrets, or maybe we think about our accomplishments, the things that we care about, or how our bodies feel. So, just during that 1 minute, did anybody have like really positive, exciting thoughts like, all these things I'm really excited for? Did anyone think about their to-do list or work or school, their obligations? Couple. Then I see a few people that are like, nope, it's Friday, I'm unplugged, left that at work. Yeah, all of it went through my mind, says Allison. She's like, all of it. Yeah, anxieties come about, worries. It's hard to turn it off, man. I wish, it's especially tricky now that we're all on Zoom all the time. We can't always unplug for it. We can't always leave it at work. Work is sometimes 3 feet away from our kitchen. What was my Instagram password? Yeah, it's funny where our mind goes sometimes. Yeah. Next slide, please. So like I said, again, mindful really allows us to notice what's real and kind of what our feelings are. Like I said, it can be really easy to get caught up in the things that we're feeling and thinking or doing / experiencing. And for example, sometimes, we use words to describe ourselves, and sometimes they're accurate, but sometimes they're not. Maybe you've described yourself as like the most awesome person or really funny, like the smartest person in the world. But maybe you've also described yourself as being a little bit different or lonely or silly or some of these other words. So how is it possible that we can use these completely opposite words to describe ourselves, the same person, right? And you can kind of think to yourself, but, maybe you consider yourself really smart or maybe really clumsy or gullible. So, if you consider yourself some of these things and they feel like they're really opposite, maybe it means that some of these are true, but they also change. And, they're evaluations of who we are, or are they evaluations of who we are? Or maybe they're just evaluations of the behaviors that we exhibit and show and engage in. And again, like I said, it can be really easy to get caught up in those thoughts and feelings. And, that's where this mindfulness piece comes in. So next slide, please. Perfect. Awesome. So when we're practicing mindfulness, what we're doing is observing all of our experiences, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, our memories, our urges, sensations, sights, sounds, smells, whatever it might be. We're experiencing all of it, taking it all in. And something kind of neat to think of it, or kind of a cool way to think of it, is almost like going to your mailbox, right? So maybe you've had this experience of going to your mailbox and it looks a little bit like this. And you kind of have to go through it, right? If you're like me, I don't check my mail every day. I check it maybe every 3 days or so, because I don't enjoy walking down the stairs to go get it. But maybe you don't check it all the time. It starts to pile up, and then you have to go through all of it. And if you're like me, you got to throw away the little Costco magazine and the coupons and the random, hey, come to our college, or the credit card, sign up now and you'll get free money, but just kidding, you won't. You kind of have to sort through it. And for every like 5 pieces of junk mail, often there's like 1 or 2 things that you don't throw away because you need to pay a bill, or it's a birthday card, or whatever it might be, right? But we have to kind of sort through it and figure out what we need and what we don't need. And mindfulness sort of allows us to do that with our thoughts. We can kind of go through and take stock of like, all right, what's going to help me? What's not going to help me? Is this helpful? Is this something I need? Or is it something that's taking me out of the present and moving me away from the things that I really care about? But it kind of allows us to be, that person going through the mail and kind of making that choice. Next slide, please. So if you've maybe noticed, I keep referring to mindfulness as a practice. I say, we're practicing mindfulness. And I'll talk about it several more times throughout the rest of our time together, but it really is a practice. Sort of like yoga, they say yoga is a practice because you never truly master it. You can always get better. And that's kind of the same thing with mindfulness. Maybe you've encountered our mindfulness talks before, and I've said it many a times. I've done this quite a while, and I am no master of mindfulness. My mind wanders constantly, all the time. I'm at a friend's house talking to you all because I left my computer charger at work because I was not being mindful. So it happens, right? We can practice these things, do it all the time, and it's still a practice, and it takes a lot of intention. So now we'll kind of talk about, how to practice mindfulness and incorporate it into your daily life, because, we're all different. We all have different needs and enjoyments and values and things like that. So we'll kind of see what works best for you. Sorry, it's a little toasty in here. So some ways to become more mindful. Perhaps you're, a person who might enjoy a guided mindfulness meditation. I know some of you are saying in the chat that you like these different apps. I know the Calm app is a really popular one where it kind of just is, guided meditation, walks you through some activities, things like that. And maybe that's your jam. Maybe that helps you really focus and you like to listen to a calming voice walk you through it. Or maybe you're like me and you can't sit still and you might nod off. Sometimes I listen to those when I'm falling asleep because they're very calming, too calming. So maybe you might be, more open, or might enjoy something that's a little bit more active, and consists of actively focusing your attention to the present moment. And we'll go through 2 different examples of these so you can maybe kind of see what works for you. And then also you can be mindful when you're performing your daily tasks. So rather than kind of setting aside a time to do it really intentionally, just kind of incorporating it into your day-to-day routines. Perfect. So one of the activities that we sometimes do during mindfulness is an activity called Leaves on the Stream. And what I'd like you all to do, if you're comfortable doing so, is close your eyes. And if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can kind of set your gaze to the floor or a place on the wall, something that feels a little bit more comfortable. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to envision a stream. Maybe it's a stream that you've seen before, or maybe you can just imagine the most beautiful stream or babbling brook that could possibly exist in the world. And maybe it's going down a little hill and kind of trickling its way down. and you notice some trees next to the stream. And there's a little bit of a breeze blowing through, rustling those leaves. And every once in a while, that breeze kind of shakes off a few leaves and they gently fall and flow into your river. And when they fall into the river, you see them going downstream. They're kind of weaving around the different rocks, bouncing back and forth, and just kind of gliding their way through. And every once in a while, one of these leaves gets stuck on a rock or kind of gets in a pile up with other leaves. And it sits there for a little bit. And it seems like it just can't get free. And it eventually does and keeps trickling on down the stream. And what I'd like you to do now, if you can, is I want you to put a thought on one of those leaves. Maybe this is a thought that you have pretty regularly, or a thought that might be in your mind right now, and just see if you can really imagine putting that thought on one of those leaves and letting it just flow down the stream. It might get stuck. It might get stuck in that pile of leaves, but just see if you can kind of let it get free and keep on flowing by. And some of these leaves with some of these thoughts may flow quicker than others. Some of them might get stuck for a little bit, and some of them might just go right on by. But see if you can allow yourself to put your thought on that leaf and just let it go, rather than fighting to keep it there or to push it down the stream, and just sort of let it be. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come on back to our group. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody. I know it's a little bit late. So did anyone enjoy that activity? Was it helpful, successful? I won't be upset if you say, nope, that was not my jam. I couldn't even think of a stream. I just want to go swimming now. Okay, so I see some thumbs up. Did anybody have the experience of like, that just did not work for me at all? Not my thing. Happy stream memories, maybe. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, some worked, some didn't. Yeah, or maybe thinking of a cloud, whatever might work, calming. Yeah, so that's, I kind of agree with you, Lisa. Sometimes it's very calming, but sometimes for me, it doesn't always help me be mindful. I'm just thinking about like, oh, the stream, and I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? So yeah, sometimes it might be too calming. But we'll do another activity to see if this one will help you out too. Yeah, Christy, sometimes we try methods, they don't work for us, and that's okay. Or maybe you did go in feeling calm and coming out feeling a little bit anxious because you're like, oh man, I have to think about these thoughts that I can't let go, and that's really tough. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. That can happen. And it takes practice. Yeah. So for this next activity, it's a little bit more interactive, and maybe you've done it before, but I really love this activity. I find it very helpful. But what I'd like everyone to do, since it looks like everybody's mostly at home, so you're probably in a space that you've spent lots and lots of time in. You're probably very familiar with these spaces that you are. I see some of you have pets behind you. You're in your spot. That's good. Probably spend lots of time here. Yeah, Don, I see some furry friends by you. So what I'd like everyone to do in this space, oh, hi friend. What I'd like everyone to do, sitting in your space, is I want you just to kind of take a look around, get a feel for where you are. Maybe you're in your kitchen or your living room, your bedroom, your home office, wherever you might be. And kind of just for a moment, think about how often you sit in this place. If you're like me, maybe you've been working from home for a really long time and you're like, man, I know every inch of this place because I've been here for a full year. I want to get out. Or maybe I sleep here every night and yeah, I know these walls. I'm pretty familiar. But what I'd like everyone to do is I want you to take a few moments and I want you to look around you. And I want you to notice 5 things that maybe you've never seen before. And some of you might be like, what? I'm here all the time. I know everything. But maybe try and see if you can notice like a different color in the paint or a speck on the wall or a light switch or the molding on the ceiling or some texture in the carpet or the floor or wherever. But see if you can just kind of find 5 things around you that you can see that you've maybe never noticed before. Or maybe you're like Caroline and you're staying in a new place, so it's all new. Easy task. Yeah. Right. And if anyone wants to kind of type in the chat like, wow, I noticed this thing in my room that I've never seen before, feel free. Oh no, you notice your new furniture has damage. That's no good. Nothing new. I'm always in this space. That's how I feel. Oh, yeah. So you noticed a crack in the ceiling. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Light and shadow in the picture frames. Yeah. It can be something really subtle. Yeah. Or the pattern on the tablecloth. Yeah. I could be better at dusting. I have that reaction a lot myself. Like, oh man, there's cat hair everywhere. That's my reaction usually. Yeah, so interesting how we kind of notice things in our space that we spend so much time in. Yeah. So next, what I'd like you all to do, and I'll hush for a little minute, but I want everyone to notice 4 things that you can hear. And like I said, I'll stop talking because I can't count for one. So try and notice 4 things that you can hear right now. So maybe you can hear the cars on the street outside the window, or people downstairs, or a TV in the next room. I know a lot of us have headphones on, so you're like, I can't, yeah, someone has noise canceling headphones, me too. Yeah, the air conditioner humming, water running, a computer fan, oh no. Yeah, so there's lots of sounds around us. A cat purring, that's a good sound. Computer clicking, hopefully it's an okay clicking. Or the clock ticking, yeah. Panting dog. Yeah, so many furry friends. Mom cleaning, the house fan, kids playing outside. Oh, a fish filter. Oh, cat hating on the dog. I like it. All right, so lots of things, lots of sounds around everybody. Nice. So this one might be a little bit trickier, but hopefully not too tricky if someone's maybe cooking dinner or you just ate dinner. But try and notice 3 things now that you can smell. That's sometimes a tricky one. 3 things that you can smell. It can be a candle or an air freshener or a pet, your coffee, your wine. Yeah. Dog. Oh no, allergies. Ooh, smell was the hardest one. Oh no, someone smells a skunk. That's not good. But good noticing that one. Yeah, it's interesting how, someone said like, oh, the smell is the tricky one. So it's like oftentimes we kind of tune out those smells, especially if they're not pleasant. We kind of just get used to them, or maybe you kind of notice them when you walk into your house and then they kind of go away just because you get used to it. I'm with you guys with allergies. Me too. I'm having a tough time. Air freshener, cat litter, stuff nose. Oh man, it sounds like a few of us are getting some allergies.
Jessica?
Ah, yes.
Sorry to break in. I just wanted to let you know that we've got 5 minutes left in our session.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. So, if you want to kind of take, the extra time when you have a few moments, I know, but actually, I think the hardest one is things you can taste, because you're like, man, I'm not chewing on anything. But sometimes you can see if you can taste like something you recently ate, or take a sip of water, something that you're drinking, kind of taste that. I think that one's the trickiest one. Cool. All right, next slide, please. So now I'm just gonna, and I know that these are on the slides, and I think we provided them to you all, so you can definitely, print these out or download them or do what you please. But I'm just gonna kind of give you all a few different ideas of ways that you can incorporate mindfulness into your daily activities. I love walking. Like I said, I am definitely also experiencing some allergies. Oh, what happened to our slide? Row. Anywho's, well, mindful walking is a great time to be mindful. Sometimes you can just go for a 10-minute silent walk and just notice things around you. It can be in your house or it can be out in the neighborhood, and try and just notice things that you've never seen before. Next slide, please. You can also do mindfulness while eating or drinking, and it kind of just involves slowing down, really tasting your food, seeing how many times you can chew your food, trying to really notice the different flavors within your foods or your drinks, which sometimes we just zoom on through and don't always notice. Next slide, please. Maybe it can be just taking 10 breaths, kind of counting them really slow, just trying to take those 10 slow, deep, mindful breaths, focusing on your breathing as slow as you can. Sometimes that's very helpful. I do that a lot when I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Next slide, please. You can also do it within your routines. When you're washing your hair, try and notice all the scents and smells. Next slide, please. You can do it with chores. Next slide. Like I said, you'll have access to all of these. You can do it during enjoyable activities, while cuddling a cat or a dog or eating lunch or whatever it might be. Next slide. I think most importantly, we want to leave you with 10 different ways to become mindful. So some tips and tricks, and I'll go through these quickly because I want to be mindful of time. The first is that it's really important to find a mindfulness practice or technique that works for you. Like we kind of went through tonight, some people might really enjoy that meditative mindfulness piece, and maybe others might need some active mindfulness that really involves becoming engaged and kind of walking through something, doing something tangible. It can also be really helpful to set a designated time each day or each week to practice mindfulness and really just make it part of your daily routine. You can also practice mindfulness with a friend, a sibling, or anybody else that you might be close with. And it can really help to have somebody kind of hold you accountable for practicing mindfulness. And it can be really fun to do it with a buddy. Also, I really recommend doing mindfulness when things are calm and quiet, but also trying mindfulness when life becomes really busy and loud and, rush, rush, rush. Also, be patient. Being mindful isn't an easy task, and it's okay. And honestly, it's expected to sometimes feel frustrated, but just remember it's a practice and practice makes progress. Next slide. Also, try and find a reason to become more mindful. So what do you miss when you're not in the present moment? What things might you get to enjoy even more when you become mindful and be aware of what you're doing? Also, becoming mindful means starting to notice the pleasant things and the things that make us a little uncomfortable. So it's really important to see if you can kind of make room for all of the thoughts and the feelings. Sometimes they're uncomfortable, sometimes they're not enjoyable, or they make us upset. But sometimes we have to make room for those things and notice, maybe why they're there. And it can be uncomfortable, but just see if you can kind of allow them to be there and let them float on by like the leaf. Also noticing when you're not being mindful is a big piece of being mindful. That's kind of the start. So start your mindfulness journey by just starting to notice when your mind is wandering. And remember, our brains are really wired to operate being full. And when we're practicing mindfulness, we're learning this new skill. So don't give up, take it day by day, and most importantly, have fun with it. It can be really fun. Next slide.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's all we got.
Thank you so much for an awesome session. Jessica, Mark, John, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who's joined. For those of you that won't be joining us for day 2, please complete the conference evaluation. I'm putting the link in the chat box now. And if you plan to be back tomorrow, we will share this link again tomorrow. So please complete that after or at the end of day 2. Again, a big thank you to everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.